Here's something strange about our market in May. Sellers have put a quarter fewer homes on the market than they did a year ago. It's down almost 26%. So you'd think things slowed down, right? Wrong. Closings are up 23%. Buyers didn't leave. Homes just got harder to find. Let's talk about it.
Welcome to the RE Real Estate Podcast, where we discuss buying and selling real estate in black and white. Here are your hosts, Ben Harang and Clint Galliano.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the RE Real Estate Podcast. I'm Ben Harang, and here with my co-host, Clint Galliano. How you doing today, Clint?
I'm doing wonderful, Ben. How you doing?
Man, I'm doing terrific. The rain stopped. We got a ton of rain last week, but things calmed down. The summer's getting hot. It's warming up, but life is good. Life is good. So what are we talking about today?
So, what happens when fewer homes hit the market, but buyers keep showing up? That's the whole story of May, and it changes the math for whether you're selling or buying right now. We're doing our monthly market check. First, we're going to cover the May numbers for the Bayou Board as a whole, and then we're going to zoom in on Lafourche and Terrebonne side by side so we can see how the two parishes are behaving differently.
All right. So who's this for? It would be for anybody that's watching the local market, buyers, sellers, and owners, just trying to keep an eye on their value.
So our first takeaway is that there's a supply squeeze going on. New listings dropped hard and the months of supply tightened across the board.
So the second takeaway is the demand held strong. So pending and closing sales were up double digits and prices firmed up month over month. So the buyers didn't go anywhere, but the same buyers were looking at fewer properties.
And the third takeaway, two parishes are diverging. Lafourche is the tighter, pricier market, and Terrebonne is the one tightening fastest. So if you put all of that together, the headline writes itself. We're drifting towards a seller-favorable market heading into summer, even though the calendar says balanced.
So what we have is a supply squeeze. The buyers didn't go anywhere, the sellers did. So new listings were 216 in May of 2025, down to 160 in May of 2026. That's almost a 26% drop. Year to date.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it is. It is. And we're closing more. Year to date, new listings are down 8.3%. So that's not as drastic a drop, but it's still down, and there's still pressure from the buy side.
And so inventory of homes for sale was 914. It dropped to 804. So that's 12% year over year.
Mm-hmm. And this is where it gets interesting, because since we've been doing this market update, the Bayou Board MLS as a whole has been in a buyer's posture with more than 6 months of inventory. So months of inventory went down from 8.1 months down to 6.0 months. That's a 26% drop. That's the line between a buyer leaning and buyer and seller leaning market, which means we're essentially board wide. We're in a balanced market with hotspots in micro markets within that.
And like we stated, sellers are the ones who pull back, not the buyers. There's fewer new listings and steady demand. So it's shrinking the shelf or, shrinking the inventory, really. 6 months of supply is a textbook balance line. And we slid right down to it from much softer 8 months a year ago.
And then the demand stayed strong, and that's board wide. The pending sales are up to 149 versus 128 a year ago. That's an increase of almost 20%.
Closed sales were 133 and they're up to 163, almost 23%. And year-to-date closings are up almost 19%.
Mm-hmm. The median sales price went from $230,000 13,940, almost 214. It's up to 220,500 now, which is 3.1% increase for the month. But the year to date actual is down 2.4% to 205,000. That we may want to look into kind of what happened there, Clint, but it goes up for the month and for the year is actually down.
And I think we had a couple of months where that median sale price year to date was down significantly. It looks like it climbed back up for the month of May. And so that would be explain that discrepancy.
Yeah. Okay.
So percent of list price received, 96.6. So that's essentially full price, much of a discount across the board, and pun intended, for the Bayou Board area for what's going on. Sellers are giving up under 4 cents on the dollar.
Well, the affordability index is 127 for the month, which is flat, but it's up 5.4% year to date. So buying power has quietly improved during this year. Buyers absorbed the available homes and then some. Prices firmed month over month, and sellers are getting nearly their full asking price. The month figure rising while the year-to-date median dips is a reminder that 1 month is a snapshot and not a trend. So why don't you take Lafourche versus Terrebonne, Clint?
The data that we're going over for Bayou Board, that comes from Louisiana Realtors supplies that to us through tracking sales and everything. The parish data comes from RPR, Realtors Property Resource. It's another tool that we use that's provided by the National Association of Realtors to give us market information and help us do comparative market analysis and stuff. So they track sales in there also. Both parishes registered as balanced on RPR's gauge, but the details tell two different stories. Lafourche is a tighter, pricier market. The median sold price was almost $230,000, and that's up 3.5%, a little bit better than 3.5% for the month. And the median list on active homes was $255,000. And sold to list was almost 97%. And homes are moving in a median of 42 days. Month supply is 5.63, and that's down 17, a little bit over 17% for the year. Now, all of that said, the majority of the Lafourche Parish market is by activity in Thibodaux. So that Thibodaux area. So that's kind of drives the market, but it's enough to where it still sets that whole parish-wide market numbers pretty high.
Yeah, and that's the micro market I was talking about or referring to a few minutes ago, which is still crazy in my mind. But Lafourche is tighter and pricier, but Terrebonne is tightening the fastest. The median sold price is $202,500, which is up 9.5% for the month. The active median list is $245,000. Sold to list is 96.3%. The median days on the market is 71. Month supply is 5.92, but down 30.8, the steepest tightening of the two. So this is the first time, correct me if I'm wrong, Clint, I've seen Terrebonne leaning towards a buyer's market since the interest rates and the insurance changed.
Yeah, and that actually, we've kind of been watching this trend while we didn't look at Terrebonne Parish as a whole every month on the market updates. We've been watching this trend since the beginning of the year on inventory, and it started coming down, and it's like, well, that's interesting. And now here we are, and they're pretty darn close between the two parishes.
Hmm. They are, which is good for everybody.
So another point we want to cover is the board's days on market until sale actually rose year over year to 112 days, while RPR's median monthly days dropped in both parishes, 42 and 71 respectively for Lafourche and Terrebonne. It's not a contradiction. They measure different things. Board number is the average of everything that closed in May year over year, and that's also for parishes. RPR is a month over month median, and it's only Terrebonne or only Lafourche. So always, even though the number may be called the same, ask what specific number you're looking at and what area does it cover before you panic or celebrate.
Yeah, because you and I do this every day, and numbers get confusing if you're not looking at them. We're looking at them, and I still try to wrap my brain around. We have fewer listings, more sales, prices are going up. It's just a wild market. So what does it mean for you? If you're thinking about selling, the low inventory is working in your favor, and homes are clearing in nearly full price. But pricing right out of the gate still matters, because the homes sitting the longest are the ones that missed on price.
And if you're buying, affordability is better than it was a year ago, but the shelf is thinner. So that means that there's less homes for you to choose from. Be ready to move when the right one comes up. And we were just talking about that. Hesitation will cost more in a tightening market, because by the time you decide you want to make a move, that home is probably already under contract.
Yeah, and if you're just an owner watching the market, estimated values up over the year about 2.2% in Lafourche and 1.3% in Terrebonne. So your equity's quietly building. But if you stay on the sideline too long, that could change. So if you're going to sell your house, if you're thinking about it, now's the time to get it ready. If you're buying a house, be ready to move, like Clint said, because a casual observer on the buy side will never find the house. There needs to be some aggression and pre-planning to pounce on a house when it's available.
All right. Yeah, ready for some homework?
No, I quit that a long time ago, Clint.
That's why I was asking the audience. All right. So here's the homework. Pull up in your neighborhood and ask one question. How many homes are actually for sale right now near me compared to what's sold in the last few months? That ratio, not the headlines, tells you whether your block is in a seller's market or a buyer's market. So write it down, keep track of it, and we'll revisit it next month when we run the June numbers.
All right. So just a little recap. There are fewer listings, more sales, firmer prices, and a market that's quietly tilting back towards the sellers as we get into summer. The first day of summer was last week on June 21st. So we in the doldrums of summer right now, but the real estate market is as hot as the weather is around here. And it's getting hot. It's getting hot. I'm spending evenings at the ballpark with my grandchildren. I left the hat in my truck one day. I had to just walk back to my truck to get it. I couldn't be out in the sun without the hat. So if you have any questions, this is obviously some deep stuff. You can find us on rerealestatepodcast.com and drop us a note, and we'll try to include your question in June's market update.
Yep. So in June's, and actually we'll probably wind up doing June's market update in about 3 weeks or so. We usually get the data by the middle of the month. So we release that market update episode right after that. Biggest things, like Ben already mentioned, go to rerealestatepodcast.com. You can find our YouTube channel link there, or you can listen to episodes directly on the website, or alternatively, whatever your favorite podcast application is, you can use that link on the website to subscribe to it, or anywhere where you get your podcasts. All right, Ben, that's another one in the can.
like, subscribe, and check us out at realestatepodcast.com. All right, Clint.
Amen.
Have a good one.
You too.
While we may discuss topics such as lending, interest rates, title law, real estate law, and appraisals in addition to real estate sales and transactions, please remember that we are only trained and licensed as real estate salespeople in Louisiana. The information shared on this podcast is for general purposes only and should not be taken as legal or financial advice. We may be agents, but unless we have signed paperwork stating otherwise, we are not your agents.